This is the campaign guide for A Song of Ice and Fire. It is your guide to Westeros. But what is Westeros? In order to keep this video under 400 hours long, I will instead get you up to date on the current events in the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. The king is dead. Long live the king, yes. Aerys the Mad King, Aerys Targaryen, has been killed, thus ending the nearly 400-year-long Targaryen dynasty. They long have since conquered Westeros, not so much through their force of arms, which was impressive, but by the fact that they had 3 full-grown dragons who were able to lay waste with fire and claw to any army so foolish enough as to challenge them. But the dragons have long since passed away. They have died out about 150 years ago, and with that, magic has faded from the land of Westeros, but it is not completely gone. The current ruler of Westeros is King Robert Baratheon, once loyal to the Targaryens, but he waged a war against them, a war for love. For he was betrothed to Lyanna Stark, a noblewoman from the north. And Lyanna had eyes for the prince of the Targaryens, Rhaegar Targaryen, and her love was very much requited by this brave and chivalrous prince. Robert Baratheon claimed that Rhaegar Targaryen kidnapped Lyanna Stark and took her away, but considering the relationship between the two, it is entirely possible that there was no kidnapping from the chivalrous knight. No, in fact, these two perhaps eloped and left Robert Baratheon in the cold. But for all of his bravery and chivalry, it did not save Rhaegar Targaryen. When he and Robert Baratheon met in battle and clashed upon the field, Robert Baratheon smote him down with his warhammer and killed him in battle. And thus, we see that sometimes love and war go hand to hand in the world of Westeros. Now, Lyanna had a brother, Eddard Stark, and he sought to rescue her from the Tower of Joy, where she and Rhaegar lived. When he entered this tower, he found his sister, unfortunately, dying. She was in her deathbed, and here she made her brother promise to keep a secret to his grave. What the secret was, we do not know. But when Eddard, her brother, returned to the Northlands, he brought with him a baby boy. He claims that this baby is his bastard son, who was born when he was off in the campaign during the wars. But perhaps there was something more from the union between Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen. Perhaps that union bore something more than battle and strife. Robert Baratheon now sits upon the throne in King's Landing, but he is a miserable king. He enjoyed taking the throne, he enjoyed winning the crown, but for all of his victories, he never got Lyanna Stark back. Instead, he is now married to Cersei Lannister, the daughter of the most wealthy lord in all of Westeros. A lord to whom Robert Baratheon, and in fact all of the kingdom, is in deep monetary debt to. The marriage between the two is unfortunately chilly, for Robert Baratheon now prefers drinking and whoring and hunting and fighting in tournaments. And Cersei woefully has found that the man she thought was a brave and chivalrous warrior is instead a wine-sot and an oaf. But the king and queen have 3 children. Although these children do not resemble the dark-haired and bristly boar of a man that is Robert Baratheon. Instead, they resemble the blonde and pale Cersei Lannister, or perhaps it is more accurate to say that they resemble Cersei and her twin brother, Jaime Lannister. For he is captain of the Kingsguard. He is a man sworn to protect the life of Robert Baratheon and his sister, the Queen. Although it was Jaime Lannister himself who slew the previous king, the Mad King, Aerys Targaryen, because in his fit of madness, when Robert Baratheon was about to take the capital of King's Landing, Aerys was prepared to burn the entire city to the ground and kill everyone, just so the usurper Robert Baratheon could not win his victory. And so Jaime Lannister struck down the Mad King. And in this, he saved the entire city, but Jaime Lannister on that day was branded a traitor and he was branded a kingslayer. For committing regicide for any reason was considered abhorrent to all people of Westeros. Meanwhile, the heirs of the Targaryen dynasty, Viserys and Daenerys, have fled across the narrow sea and they hide in the city of Pentos. They have no armies and they have no forces with which to retake the throne that they are born to. But Daenerys Targaryen is about to receive a wedding gift of 3 dragon eggs. Meanwhile, in the Northlands, there is a wall 700 leagues wide that protects Westeros from northern invasion by the barbarian wildlings and the mammoths that they ride and the giants that serve as their allies. There are also whispers now of darker things moving in the north. There are whispers of strange winter fae, simply called the Others. And these creatures have the ability to rise up anyone that they slay, and they are creating an undead army. And perhaps the southern lands of Westeros is what they are seeking to reclaim. The maesters of the tower, wise men and learned folk, have observed the stars and they have observed the weather, and now there is no doubt Westeros is about to sink into a mini ice age, a winter that will last years and years, a perfect time for these strange creatures to invade the southern lands as chill grips them all. There is no doubt, in Westeros, winter is coming. And so that is the setting of Westeros. Did that draw you in? I hope it did, because I find Westeros to be an excellent setting, and I feel that the mark of any good setting is one where you cannot swing a dead kobold without hitting either some intrigues or some excellent plot hooks. But if you're swinging a dead kobold in Westeros, where'd you get that kobold? There are no kobolds in Westeros. But either way, Westeros is a fascinating setting, and this book does an excellent job of guiding you through it. The first chapter is a guide to Westeros culture, and there you will see the laws of marriage and inheritance and the cultural traditions throughout the lands, and the food and drink that people enjoy, as well as the laws and the justice, because these two things are not necessarily the same. There is also information on the faith of the 7 gods that are worshipped in the lands, as well as the old gods, the hundreds of old gods that are worshipped in the north. And there's also information on the maesters, the scholars and wise men, and their goal of bringing learning and science to the world of Westeros. Science insofar as you can bring to a medieval culture like Westeros. The maesters also have a secret mission, one in which they're trying to suppress knowledge of magic. In fact, one of their order has recently been expunged from this august assembly because he has delved into necromancy. But more than that, he's made it work. The rest of the book is about all 7 kingdoms of Westeros, and each one is given great detail. For example, there is the Northlands. It is full of a dour people, a hard people, a hardy people, people who are used to great trial and tribulation in the north. They stand unique in Westeros in that they worship the old gods and they hold to old traditions, ones that have been stamped out in the rest of the 7 kingdoms. They are also very aware of the horrors that may approach the lands from beyond the wall. They know they must keep ever vigilant and protect the lands from invasion. There is also the Reach, and this is the breadbasket of Westeros, great plains and fields where most of the crops are grown. It resembles the south of France, and that is very appropriate because this is where the best and most skilled mounted knights reside. There is also the Iron Islands, a dark and stormy place, traditionally home of pirates and reavers and Viking types. Recently, the Lord of the Iron Islands declared himself king and tried to secede from the 7 kingdoms. He burned ships and ports, and he assaulted all the lands and looted and plundered. But instead, he awoke a sleeping giant, and the kingdoms banded together and smote him down. And now, the Lord of the Iron Island broods in his tower, and he waits for his next moment to strike. There is also the Land of Dorne, Imagine a slice of Spain has been taken off and put on the bottom of the British Isles. This is the land of Dorne, an arid land, a land of silks and spices. And they are culturally influenced by the Rhoynar, a sort of Moorish type people, but they did not invade Westeros. Instead, they fled there as their kingdom was being destroyed by dragons in the east. There is also great detail on the capital of Westeros, King's Landing. There are maps, and there are detailed locations, and there are lists of the important people. There is also a catalog of all the innumerable plots that boil and bubble up in this den of asps that is King's Landing, a city filled with intrigue. So all these 7 kingdoms are detailed, but there is also the lands beyond Westeros. There's Bravos, a sort of Venice-type city filled with, well, bravos, and they enjoy dueling others with their fencing blades. There is the Dothraki Sea, which is not a sea at all. Rather, it is a great grassy plain, a great steppe, where the Dothraki horse lords live, and they much resemble the Mongol people, and they are the masters of horse and bow and curved sword. There is also Karth. This is the jewel of the East, the greatest trade city, the richest city, the most amazing city that the world has ever seen. So there is extensive information on both Westeros and beyond. This information in the book is quite useful to anyone because it is not just game information, it's information about the setting. If you're interested in it from reading the books, or if you're interested in it from watching the show, picking up this book can be quite useful to you. Now, what little game statistics there are in the book is actually just the stats of major characters. And this is, if you're familiar with the rules, this is fun to look at. It's fun to see the stats of your favorite characters. You can look at Ned Stark and see that he is indeed a great leader. You can see from his stats that he has a great head on his shoulders. You can see that Jaime Lannister very much has a reason for being the most renowned knight in all the lands. You can see that he is quite handy in a fight. And meanwhile, his little brother is quite the opposite. He has no combat ability, but instead, with his great deception and great cunning, he has quite the nose for intrigue. I consider this book to be an invaluable resource for researching the land of Westeros. And as for running a campaign in it, you can't ask for a better campaign guide. Now, I'd like to take a moment to also talk about another product, a separate product, called the Narrator's Kit. That's what the GM is called in Song of Ice and Fire RPG. It's called the Narrator. And in this kit, one, you get the map that you can see here. You also get this narrator's screen. Now, if you are philosophically opposed to using a screen in your game, that's fine, but this screen is also very useful. One, it has an attractive depiction of the wall in the north that guards the land from the wildlings. It is also filled with information on the back. Now, this sort of thing is useful for any game. It lets you reference any sort of rules that you need within a moment but a glance. So if you don't like having a wall up between you, just as there's a wall between the wildlings and the southern lands, you can just set it to the side and use it when you need it. And you might need it a lot because it is an excellent resource. So I recommend it. Coming with the screen is this short, I hesitate to say module or adventure, but it's this short little plot called The Wedding Night. That's night with a K. And it involves the characters in their party going to a party. They go to a wedding in Westeros. But being Westeros, there is of course plots. And there's intrigues and there's betrayal at this wedding. And I find that this is much more of a guideline for an event that might take place in your campaign. In fact, when they give you certain plots and certain schemes that the characters might engage in, they give you a list of a few and let you choose which one that a character might engage in. You, as a narrator, you might have to do some work, but it's a very malleable plot, and it will take you about probably one session to go through. It's not very long. So, that is the campaign guide and the narrator's kit for A Song of Ice and Fire RPG.